A conversation I was having with Lady Divik a while back got me thinking about Steven Universe again. We were talking about Hasbin Hotel and how great the storytelling is, and I brought up Steven Universe and how terrible it is as far as storytelling is concerned, and I mentioned I could come up with a better story in like 15 minutes, and indeed, 15 minutes later, I came up with, well, this. Mostly cliff notes and small expansions here and there, so let's get started with the issues. What I will be cutting from the show, placing in a different area, or retooling that to make an attempt, or retooling things rather, that are attempted but not done very well. Now, this was the case for a little while until I shared my plan with a coworker, and she began to pick my brain about this idea as a whole, asking things that I did not consider or think of. With those questions in mind, I gutted a lot of what was already in place with the new ideas it considered. What are those things? I will get into it as needed. For now, let's speak on my dislikes of the show and what I changed. Now, Steven Universe as a whole could have been a good show, however, there were so many problems and inconsistency, especially with character models and scores of other things that have already been pointed out by channels much bigger than myself. Lashing the entire show to one character, that being Steven, when you have a literal colorful cast, is quite criminal if you ask me. It's silly and makes no sense. So first things first, we're coming out of the solo focus to make the show feel more lived in, getting to see many gem locations without Steven being present. Yes, I cut 98% of the humans, but it's warranted. This show should be about the crystal gems, not just Steven. While he isn't present for the smaller character moments, he is present for the major events introducing new gems and all the conflicts with the diamonds. Steven is there. However, in moments like the reveal of Opal, though that is exclusive to Pearl and Amethyst, we can come up with some random reason for them to actually need to fuse. I don't know. I don't see the point in Steven being there. He can meet Opal when Jasper and Peridot show up, but that's it. Sugilite can meet Steven, I suppose? But he doesn't have to be there all the time. That's silly. All the fusions with Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl do not require Steven's presence. Garnet and the other characters are admittedly much more interesting, and I cut a lot of the fluff, even with them doing, well, literally them just doing nothing, and that's just cut. Now, there's only two humans that we're keeping in aside from Steven himself, and that's Greg and Connie. Now, Greg himself, and actually Connie as well, I'm largely leaving unchanged. And, the flashback episodes with Greg that show him how he met the gems and, the death of Rose, all that stuff is changing more along the same. Amethyst, we're going to gut substantially, and we're only going to need to do the self-loathing plot line like maybe once or twice. Think My Little Pony with Fluttershy. We're not gonna keep doing the same song and dance over and over with Amethyst. We are going to keep her cool big sis relationship with Steven, though, for when he's on screen, and by extension Peridot much later. I like the Shorty Squad. We are keeping the Shorty Squad. Dang blasted. Now, here's where things get really interesting, because with Pearl's character, her obsession with Rose and by extension Steven, that's gross, so we're cutting it entirely. Now, unrequited love could be interesting if it's done right. While to my knowledge there aren't any good examples of it, Ruby even did this with Cinderfall and Emerald Sestrai. It wasn't done very well there, and it wasn't done well here either. Cutting that for Pearl was important. Now, if you absolutely must keep that character theming in there somewhere, then we can tone it way the heck down. Now, also, Pearl doesn't hate Greg, or have any resentful feeling towards him, due to the whole obsession thing, and I feel like those two things are connected to some extent, so we're going to cut that altogether. And instead, the two can bond over the fact that they both loved Rose, and, going from there. So, the events of Mr. Greg, I think the episode name was, basically already happened, and, Pearl can still be the overprotective mom figure, and, love symmetry and all that stuff, but that's about it. We're cutting a lot of the problem child stuff. Now moving on to my favorite of the main three, that being Garnet. Now Garnet became a mouthpiece for his first fusion and whatnot pretty much after season 1, so we're going to gut that and entirely, more or less. Now just so we can get more time with Ruby and Sapphire. Now, considering that Ruby and Sapphire of the main cast are the only, well, gay relationship, we're going to have them out more often, and Garnet herself can be around every once in a while for, big time missions that would require her presence, but also, have softer moments where we actually see the two interact with each other. And then, when Bismouth shows up, of course, Garnet can have some scenes with her, but otherwise it is going to be Ruby and Sapphire. And maybe you can actually see in separate scenes, maybe Ruby's interacting with Steven off camera or something, and then Sapphire can be feeling a little bit lonely because Ruby is not present. We get to see those moments on screen because we don't get to see Ruby and Sapphire all that often because they're locked inside Garnet all the time. So, coming back to Bismuth for just a moment, when she first shows up, you have Steven and Amethyst being weirded out by this new gem. And one big change is by the time we meet Bismuth, Lapis and Peridot are already on the team. Well, Lapis is also a core member from way back in the day, but we'll get into that in just a second. You can have all these new characters being like, not sure about this new gem, and then, the Bismuth episode goes virtually unchanged. Because why not? And instead of it being Steven, you can have it be Pearl. And so then the thematics there of, oh, Rose would not agree to the breaking point, why Bismuth is showing Pearl of all people the breaking point, no idea, but you can come up with something. And then, the two can fight, and Pearl does actually poof Bismuth, and then you still get that heartbreaking scene at the end of the episode. Now, Lapis is my favorite gem in the show. I have multiple plans with her. First and foremost, she's not trapped in that stupid mirror for all of eternity, or however long it was. Pearl sees the gem, recognizes what it is, and goes straight to Rose with it. Rose is taken aback by the discovery of a lapis lazuli being kept in a mirror, and she is released almost immediately. Now, the debut form of, her with the cracked gem, and her not having irises and whatnot, we're keeping that in because, yes, I actually like that design detail. And of course, you can visit one of the pink diamond water springs, and then that's how Lapis gets healed. And she is a member of the team from that day forward. So, picture season 1, but Lapis is there as well. And, Peridot as well, largely the same. I honestly really do love what the show did with her. Peridot had a full arc, so we're definitely going to keep that, with the addition of Lapis saying, hey, so I was with the whole home world thing, and they lied to us about the crystal gems. I've been here since X amount of time. They're actually fantastic people. It's home world and the diamonds that are the problem. Speaking of the diamonds, I kind of overhauled them just a little bit. Now, White Diamond first. She is treated much like Fire Lord Ozai in the Avatar: The Last Airbender. You see her hands or her feet, you hear her speak, but you don't see her physically. She is a proper villainous force straight away, and is treated as such all the way through. Even after seeing her properly, aka the face reveal, she's still scary, and the air around her is very, very much intense. She is largely unchanged, and as honestly, she was pretty great until after the big battle in season 5, which I am heavily remaking. Now, Pink Diamond. Pink Diamond, Pink Diamond, Pink Diamond. Oh my gosh, Pink Diamond. Now, Pink Diamond and Rose Quartz, they are made separate characters instead of being one and the same. And I have agreed with YouTubers bigger than I am that those two being the same character is silly. So, the show as a result, the show tried to make Pink the worst character of all time, so separating Rose from her is actually very, very smart and kind of gives the crystal gems even more of a reason to get rid of Pink Diamond. So splitting them apart is actually much better for the show going forward. Rose herself still falls for Greg, and Steven is born later. We do not, however, have Rose keeping secrets from the other gems. That is silly and is only there to create pointless conflict between characters. Rose's passing is a gut punch to everyone. If anything, her death brings the gems and Greg closer. like I stated before, with Pearl's changes. And, because those two actually have commonality and, bonded. So we got rid of a lot of that. Now, yellow and blue. Starting with yellow here, she is a full-on military general that has no time for foolishness, though her loyalty to white is uncontested and her love for blue is actually genuine. Like, she does care for Blue Diamond, and the two help each other through their grief. The show hinted at this during that actually really good song, so we're going to run with it. Blue Diamond, also, by the time we meet her, is not a sobbing mess over Pink Diamond like she was when she was first physically revealed. In fact, she has a very good relationship with Yellow, as I said before, as they interact very frequently. While yes, the loss of Pink is brought up from time to time, neither of them are racked with guilt. They have moved past the depression stage of losing someone. And by the time we meet the Diamonds, this can be in maybe like season 3 or 4, they are stoic leaders and take their jobs very seriously. Blue Diamond is largely introduced the same, only visiting Palanquin. Instead of visiting the Palanquin, like she was in that episode, she's actively looking for the crystal gems. She doesn't find them, however, but it's pretty intense the entire time. There's a huge risk to Blue Diamond fighting them because she's a diamond. She can shatter any of the crystal gems if she really wanted to. It is also worth mentioning that despite the class system, the gems under each diamond are given free will, though they still choose to follow their leaders and even take orders from other diamonds should it ever come up. Despite this, the diamonds expect loyalty above all else. So when the rebellion eventually begins, everyone is shocked that anyone would dare go against the Diamond Authority. As far as additional plans, I have a few. First things first, the Rose Quartz Gems, like all of them, are super elite warriors. Think Dora Milaje in the Black Panthers movies. Stronger than even some quartz soldiers like Jasper and even Amethyst. This was added for a few reasons. We still have Rose shattering Pink, so putting her as a top dollar combatant not only explains Steven's later extreme power, but it also puts them below the diamonds themselves. Also, the Rose Quartz Gems are as powerful as Pink Diamond. As well, it explains how the deuce Rose shattered Pink at all. Connected to that is Rose's sword, just the one, not the two. Jeez. One of the retcons added to this Rose change is that the sword is capable of shattering gems depending on who is using the sword themselves. So a gem that is on par with a low-ranking diamond like Pink using a sword that can shatter a gem. See where I'm going with this? In canon, Bismouth said that the sword cannot shatter a gem, only take away their physical form. Why would someone who hates Homeworld so much make a sword that can't be rid of Homeworld gems? The math isn't mathing there. Something doesn't make sense there. And finally, Spinel. Spinel. The main antagonist of the movie. Yeah, we don't actually need the movie either, because Rose goes and gets Spinel from the garden. Let's just say that Rose is aware of Spinel because Rose herself went with Pink Diamond pretty much everywhere as a personal guard. So she knew all about Spinel being left behind after getting, the Earth colony. After Pink's shattering, Spinel is recovered and brought in as a founding member of the Crystal Gems and is present all the way through to the birth of Steven and subsequent seasons. So, let's go over the rap sheet of the Crystal Gems. We have Rose Quartz, Garnet, Amethyst, Pearl, Bismuth, Lapis Lazuli, and Spinel. And that I realized too that kind of goes against what I said earlier about Lapis being confused, but you can also just say that she is just a part of the meeting and is like, yeah, well, Bismuth is cool, by the way. And she can be part of the conversation that, does help Amethyst and whatnot, kind of relax. So there we go. And I'm realizing too that also doesn't make sense, because why would Amethyst be here? And you can also just say that, oh, she joins later, much like she did in the canon show. So, along with the other members that Bismouth mentions in her episode. I'm having a stroke trying to record this part. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that, guys. Which will be present also, but be corrupted by the other 3 diamonds. Now, speaking of that, Corruption Blast still happens. Rose not only protects Garnet and Pearl from the blast, but Lapis, Bismuth, and Spinel as well. You're probably wondering how the blazes she manages this. Simple. The other 3 were poofed during the battle right before, and Rose only had time to bubble them and immediately sending them far away, proceeding to grab Garnet and Pearl much like she does in the show and protect them with the shield. Speaking of the shield, it's just strong enough to protect the 3 of them. Barely. The shield cracks and starts to fall apart, but thankfully the diamonds halt the blast, and the others are recovered and released from the bubble. We can maybe then have a scene or 2 of them mourning their losses. Rose and Garnet do return to the battlefield to see if anyone survived, only to discover the corrupted gem forms. Speaking on them, they are largely the same. Still gems that lost control of themselves, and the crystal gems are in charge of taking care of them as they appear, which later leads to the forced fusions, which are found by Garnet, Bismuth, and Lapis. Garnet and Bismuth because they had a good relationship with the gems involved, and Lapis is there for backup in case they need it. Our cut-off gem is absolutely beast, after all. Almost 2,000 words, man, and we're finally done with the major changes made. Could this be in its own video? Yes, it is. We will soon go over season 1 and all the changes that were made there as well. With all that stuff, we not only have a stacked cast, but also a series that I think makes a lot of sense objectively, and already repairs a lot of the problems that Steven Universe had with the gem characters, and not only makes Rose as objectively a better character by splitting her from Pink, but she is also a fantastic character that you grow to love who she is over the course of the show. So when she finally does pass in, say, season 2 or 3, everyone, including the viewer, is just gutted. That is all for the first part. Let me know what you guys think of all the changes, and what would you recommend for anything else. Also, what weapons do you think the other gems would have? You know, Biggs, Crazy Legs, and all of them. Let me know below. And thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.